As Anas has been getting us the latest coming in from on the ground in Kabul, just a reminder to our viewers who are just tuning in, these are the latest images coming in from Kabul. An explosion that took place near Kabul airport. As per Reuters, a US military strike has been reported in Kabul. A Taliban spokesman, according to the Associated Press, saying that a US military airstrike has targeted a suicide bomber in a vehicle who wanted to target the Kabul International Airport. This coming just hours after the US had warned that another attack at the Kabul airport was highly likely. Remember, the August 26 explosion had killed over 180 people, including 13 US service personnel. In the latest, as per the Associated Press, Zabiullah Mujahid has said in a message to journalists that the strike has happened and the US military officials at this point could not be immediately reached for comment, as per the Associated Press news agency. This incident happened, as per the latest details coming in, as a rocket struck a neighborhood just northwest of Kabul's international airport. This is amid the US evacuation efforts that are underway at the Kabul airport. It's a race against time with the August 31 deadline approaching. Also joining us on the broadcast is investigative journalist Michael Kay. He has spent nearly a year working in Kabul, has extensively reported on the situation in the country. Thanks very much, Michael, for joining us.
Hi, Molly.
Your assessment of the initial details that have trickled in over the last few hours.
Molly, I think what we're hearing at the moment is remarkable, because if the reports are true about it being a US precision strike, we're now in uncharted territory in terms of effectively the US and the Taliban working together to try and deny Islamic State Khorasan a threat. I think this brings out two really, really important components of what we're seeing right now. At the political level, I think the first really important piece of analysis is the fact that the Taliban should have been made to negotiate with the government of Afghanistan prior to any takeover, and a power sharing agreement should have been a precondition that was stuck to by the Biden administration when it came to not creating a power vacuum. And that's effectively what we're seeing at the moment. And the reason why this is so tragic and catastrophic and sad is because the US has spent, and the UK have spent, billions of dollars. They've spent many, many years of time, energy and resource into training and mentoring the Afghan National Army. The US has provided billions in terms of equipment capability, from Humvees, night vision goggles, aircraft, Black Hawks, Cessna intelligence aircraft, and trained all the crews. And effectively what's happened now is that because of this lack of pressure on the Taliban to negotiate with the government of Afghanistan, all of that has now gone. All of that training, I was part of I led an assessment on the Afghan National Army in 2005. All of that evolution of the Afghan National Army is now going to waste in terms of defense of the country. The other big bit on this as well is, I used to work as part of the kill chain. We called it the kill chain in the military, and that was part of the kill chain process was effectively precision strikes and precision assaults, not always using missiles, sometimes taking special forces in to go and take out key leadership, not take it out, but, apprehend them. Or it could be the selection of a precision-guided bomb onto a target, like we're seeing at the moment, a SVB IED, which is a suicide vehicle-borne IED, a car with a suicide bomber in it, and to take these people out. And the key bit that also comes from this on the military side is that the US still have air superiority over Afghanistan and over Kabul, and without air superiority, the Taliban have a huge vacuum or gap in their ability to provide national security to the country in terms of governance. So I think those are the two key aspects that are coming out of this right now. And the other question I would be asking, or some of the questions I would be asking, is to what extent are the US actually working with the Taliban in terms of that kill chain process? It used to be in a big operations room. So I would expect the US to be working the human channels with the Taliban, that's the human intelligence, in order to try and understand where the SVB IEDs are. There were also reports of intelligence of 7 suicide vests that were on the loose over the last 48 hours as well. And I know intelligence will be trying to track those and trying to work out where they're going to detonate as well. So there's a lot of questions to be asked, and especially within these uncharted territory or these uncharted waters of actually collaborating with the Taliban to try and neutralize the Islamic State terrorism threat.
Indeed, a lot of questions remain unanswered, and uncertainty escalating with each passing day for the future of Afghans. Michael, stay with me. Just hold that thought. Let's go back across to our correspondent in Kabul, Anas Malik, who has been getting us up to speed with the latest coming in. Anas, at this point, it is safe to say that this is a US military strike that took place in Kabul just a short while back. These images that we are getting to our viewers from Kabul of smoke billowing out of this neighborhood very close to the Kabul airport seems to be the location of that US military strike at this point. There is no confirmation on that front, and we are also getting in reports of a child who has been killed as a result of this attack that's taken place. The two incidents initially appeared to be separate. Information on both of these is extremely sketchy at this point. But as we piece things together, Anas, get us up to speed with any reaction coming in at this point. The Taliban has said that this was a US military airstrike that targeted a suicide bomber. What more do we know?
Absolutely, Molly. The Taliban have now confirmed that a suicide bomber was in a vehicle who was targeted by the U.S. military strike. In its strike, now the U.S. military has said that it was an over-the-horizon strike. To my memory, it was the first of its kind in the capital city of Kabul. Perhaps in the 20-year-long war on terror that the U.S. had waged in Afghanistan, this is perhaps the first ever drone strike that took place in the capital city of Kabul. We've seen strikes taking place very near to Kabul in Wardak just 15 days back when I was reporting from here, and earlier about 2 weeks back, last Sunday when President Ghani was on his way out, we saw airstrikes as well in Wardak. That is about 50 kilometers, it's 25 miles. We've seen drone strikes in Khost, Logar, Laghman, Mehtarlam and so on, but a first of its kind in the capital city of Kabul. I'll just give you something very interesting that I've been noticing. I've been here for more than a month now, and usually we'd hear jets hovering over the capital city of Kabul starting afternoon, sometime around 3 p.m. Until about 8 till 9 p.m. Kabul time. So they would start late afternoon and they would continue until evening. But today, as the news of this drone strike emerges, I have not been able, in fact I was speaking to other journalists as well, we have not heard a single jet hovering over the skies of Kabul. That is something very, very significant and different as well by and large, because if you look at it, jets usually make a lot of noise, and the drone strikes that take place, the over-the-horizon drone strikes that take place, they come from a distance. Drones are usually not visible through a naked eye either. What we can confirm that the Taliban spokesperson has said that, in a text message to journalists, that the US military did indeed conduct an airstrike. It was on a vehicle that had an alleged suicide bomber that was going towards the airport. The US military sources say that they have targeted an ISK suicide bomber who was going towards the airport. So the airport seems to be the commonality over here, A, and B, that explosion that was heard roughly about 2 hours, 1 hour 40 minutes back in the capital city of Kabul. It was a very loud explosion. It is now increasingly coming clear that the rocket, which was being reported initially as a rocket attack, and now Reuters coming up with information which is now being backed by the Taliban spokesperson. It is increasingly becoming clear that the two were the same incident. It was not a rocket attack. It was a drone strike over the horizon that targeted a vehicle which had a suicide bomber of the ISK which was going towards the airport. Molly?
Right. Anas Malik giving us a better sense of what is a developing story at this point. Details emerging with each passing minute of what has been an attack in a residential area in Kabul. As per Reuters, this was a military strike, a U.S. military strike that targeted an ISIS Khorasan suicide bomber who was targeting the Kabul airport. This comes just hours after the U.S. had warned that there was a high possibility of another attack at the Kabul airport following the 26th August explosion in which over 180 people were killed, including 13 U.S. service personnel. Let's go back across now to Michael Kay, who's been getting us his perspectives on these developing details at this point. Michael, as we piece things together, tell us more about your understanding of the ISIS Khorasan's operations in Afghanistan, what the Taliban takeover means when it comes to the operations of this terror outfit. Earlier, the U.S. had targeted 2 logistics experts of this group. As per the latest details, Reuters saying that the U.S. military strike has targeted an ISIS-K suicide bomber who was trying to target the Kabul airport.
Islamic State Khorasan in Afghanistan, Pakistani militants that were supposedly fleeing their own country of Pakistan under the idea that they were being oppressed, but actually had more sinister ideas and to what we now know as this subset of Islamic State, and are calling themselves Islamic State in Khorasan Province, or KP. Nangarhar is the province which is home to these Pakistani militants. Nangarhar province is significant because it contains the city of Jalalabad. And for those that can remember, Jalalabad, there was a CIA Special Forces operations base where the strike on Osama bin Laden was launched using 2 stealth Black Hawk helicopters from Jalalabad, flying low level over the Pakistani border to take out Osama bin Laden. So, Nangarhar is quite significant for a number of reasons, Jalalabad being one of them. I think the thing that is striking to me right now when it comes back to this reported airstrike is, as someone that was part of what we called the kill chain in the past, there's a tremendous amount of resources that are required in order to get the precision of strike onto target. And what I mean by that is that there's what's called collateral damage estimates, but there's a significant amount of intelligence on the ground, what we call HUMINT, which is effectively human intelligence from people that could offer that on the ground, to imagery intelligence, to electronic intelligence. And electronic intelligence is basically the ability of a drone to suck up communications, listen to potential terror and try and sort of intercept their plan. Now, in order to do this, you also need forces on the ground, boots on the ground, that can confirm the strike, or at least get eyes onto the target. They historically have been called JTACs, Joint Terminal Air Controllers, and that's a very specialist niche capability that the US have used.
Right, we are losing that audio line with Michael. Michael, we just try and reconnect that line. But as Michael is helping us better understand what this really means for Afghanistan, for the future of Afghans, utmost uncertainty at this point. Another attack that's taken place right after the August 26 explosion. At this point, as per reports, this is a U.S. military strike that targeted ISIS Khorasan terrorists. The Taliban spokesperson, as per the Associated Press, has said that the strike targeted a suicide bomber in a car who was on his way to carry out an attack at the Kabul airport. The Kabul airport, remember, has been the epicenter of the massive evacuation efforts that have been underway on part of the United States. Just 3 days to go for the August 31 deadline to expire. With time fast running out, the United States had earlier also warned that another attack was likely at the Kabul airport. As per the Associated Press and Reuters, the U.S. military strike targeted ISIS Khorasan terrorists, targeted a suicide bomber who was trying to attack the Kabul airport and was on his way to carry out that attack as the American evacuation effort continues. Remember, earlier the U.S. had targeted ISIS Khorasan logistics experts as well. The Pentagon had said that it had killed 2 high-profile targets. These were logistics experts for the ISIS Khorasan terror outfit. Another member of the terror group was injured in that drone strike that took place in eastern Afghanistan. This was in retaliation for the suicide bombing that took place on the 26th of August at the Kabul airport, in which over 180 people were killed. Remember, that figure included 13 U.S. service personnel. Over the last few hours, we had several reports pointing towards how the U.S. had warned that there would be another attack at the Kabul airport. So the situation remained tense. And these are the latest images that we are getting to you from Kabul of smoke billowing out of this residential area very close to the Kabul airport. Reuters, as well as Associated Press, confirming at this point that a U.S. military strike took place in Kabul. We are yet to confirm if these images are the result of that U.S. military strike that took place targeting ISIS Khorasan terrorists. A suicide bomber of the ISIS-K terror outfit was targeted by the U.S. military in that drone strike. A suicide bomber in a car who was on his way to carry out an attack at the Kabul airport was targeted. A loud explosion that was heard in Kabul, this explosion taking place near the Kabul airport. Sketchy details at this point of this explosion that has taken place in Kabul. Extremely crucial hours ahead for Afghans. Anas, as we were talking earlier about what this means for the evacuation efforts, utmost certainty given the fact that the Kabul airport has been the one point where the evacuation has been taking place. Afghans have been congregating there, gathering there for days and weeks now. At the same time, given how sensitive the situation is, this would mean further complication for America's evacuation efforts. They have just about 2 days to go for the August 31 deadline to expire.
Well, certainly it would complicate the evacuation efforts, because in all practicality, as we have been reporting since Friday, that the evacuation efforts for Afghans, solely Afghans, has come to a standstill, and only those Afghans with dual nationalities, those who are Afghans and have a national citizenship, passport or permanent residency of a third country or of another country in the West, were being evacuated. We saw the last British evacuation flight taking place yesterday, and before that we saw the Italian evacuation flight taking place as well. The NATO senior civil representative Stefano Pontecorvo also flying out. So by and large, this drone strike or this military strike that has taken place very near to the Kabul airport would further complicate those evacuation efforts, those which have been undergoing for foreign nationals specifically. The Taliban spokesperson has confirmed that a suicide bomber was in a vehicle who was going towards the airport, which was targeted by the U.S. military strike, the first of its kind. But it is pertinent to add over here that this area, Khawaja Bughra, where the airstrike has taken place, it's west of Kabul, and rather northwest of Kabul. And northwest of Kabul, it is very near to the North Gate, where we have been reporting from just on Friday. The North Gate was in control of the Afghan National Defense Security Forces NDS-01 unit that had not surrendered. So it has happened very near to that, and in all likelihood, this would give a bigger blow for the evacuation of those foreign nationals as well, those who held a dual nationality, and because, as I said, the evacuations for Afghans has come to a standstill, and this would mean that we can see expedited efforts for a pack-up, for a push out of Afghanistan by foreign forces, keeping in mind this drone strike or this threat alert that was also cited by the US President Joe Biden in his statement yesterday, and this would mean a bigger blow to the evacuation. Molly?
Right. We're taking a very short break at this point. Anas will continue to get us up to speed with the latest coming in from Kabul. Stay tuned to WION World is One. This is a developing story. Kabul witnessing a U.S. military strike targeting an ISIS Khorasan terrorist, a suicide bomber who was on his way to target the Kabul airport. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.